Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the art studio. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Lumix 7-14mm f4 micro 4/3 zoom lens. This is a pretty sweet little lens for both photography and video applications. I'm going to share some photographs and a few clips of what I capture with it and hopefully share a little bit of inspiration, so stay tuned. So I've gotten to spend a fair amount of time with this lens and I use it both photographically and in video. And one of the shots that we get asked a lot about in our vlog is the shot where we're just driving in the car. We have the camera mounted dead center in the car. I'm going to bring that shot up real quick just to give you a perspective. As you can see, we have our camera mounted in the center, and the beauty of this shot is that it keeps things beautiful. Whether the top is up or down, you can see the outside of the car and what's going on, the buildings we pass, so on and so forth. And this lens also offers these beautiful lens flares throughout the day as well. Even when the top is down, you can see these beautiful lens flares and see enough of the outside of the car that it works really well. So although this is kind of boring banter, at least the shot itself is pretty to look at. So my go-to lens for that is the 7-14. Usually I'm zoomed all the way out at between 7 and 8mm, give or take, to capture it. And the way I mount it in the car, let me just bring this up, is I happen to have left over from my DSLR days a little thing here called a Sound Devices Mix Pre-D. This is a best-in-class audio preamp for doing dual audio into a camera. I don't use this anymore because the preamps in the GH5, GH5S, G9 are so good that I just don't need to. But back in the day, or if you're using a mirrorless camera that doesn't have great preamps, this is a great go-to device for that. You can do dual audio. But what I use it for now is I just use it as my mounting device. It's about 1.5 inches high, so it keeps the camera up enough so we can see through the back window, and it is just rock solid. I put these little rubber feet on it, and with these tiny little micro 4/3 lenses, this thing ain't going anywhere in the dash. So that's how we're mounting it and how we're getting that shot done, and kind of answers that question. So let's dive over to the B&H site and see what this lens costs to get a little more detail on it as well. Okay, so it's $897.99, so $900 lens. Anytime I can find a lens that's $900 and I use it this often, it's a win-win. It is f7-14mm, which is full frame equivalent of 14-28mm, so pretty wide. f4 at its widest, f22 at its tightest aperture, lots of 5-star reviews as you can see. I don't worry about the fact that it is f4, I want to mention, because with a really wide lens, you don't really have to worry so much about camera shake as you do with longer lenses. Plus 5-axis stabilization in the GH5, G9 I should say, allows us to hand hold things so well. So no worries on the f4 with a lens this wide. So when I'm working at weddings or events, I do a lot of photojournalistic work, which means I'm not stopping and posing. I'm just moving with our couples, you know, throughout the events. And I'm going to bring up some shots here where these aren't necessarily my best shots of the world, but they are just good examples of what we can do. And so here we're walking down the street with the guys. They got ready a little bit early, so we're going to go have some beers. And as I'm click, click, click walking down the street, I feel a tree limb over my head. And so here I get behind, I keep walking, but I flip out this beautiful little flip out screen, raise the camera high, up into the tree, and just click, click, click. So I think when I use this lens, I'm always looking at compositions where I need to think about lower and upper thirds and framing my subjects in those places to make the shot work. But I love that I can think about framing this way, and that's the beauty of extremely wide lenses. Here's another perspective. They stopped and had a beer down on the wharf, and you can see, again, framing them in the lower thirds of the perspective of the shot. It gives a sense that they are the central focus point, even though they're not centered. So thinking about composition. Being that at 14 millimeter zoomed out, or zoomed in, I should say, it's actually like a 28 millimeter full frame equivalent. I can also do these beautiful shots of the bride and groom as they walk the streets of Newport, and kind of in tight as well as they walk on the sidewalks. It's a great lens for those wide perspectives, those landscapes, keeping the couple in the lower thirds here, but picking up the entire sky down where all the boats are on the pier, so really tight space, but capturing the grandeur of that space. I love this lens during getting ready moments, especially because I like them to feel private whenever possible. So a lot of times I'll step outside of a doorway, kind of pull that door to, get a little low, and just get that kind of private perspective shooting through the door. Perfect lens to do that type of thing. Also, this is it. This is the go-to for those cathedral shots. Now, early in my career, and I'm sure a lot of photographers these days do the same thing, I would go up to the front of the altar and pose families and the bride and groom. And there'd be all these things coming out of their heads. What I've learned is step the couple away from the altar, halfway down, 2/3 of the way to the back of the church, and use a wide lens. And so here I'm zoomed out to 7 millimeter all the way out, and this shows you what this lens looks like when I'm at 7 millimeter, standing in the same spot. Here I am at 14 millimeter, and you can see kind of the different perspectives you can get with this same lens on your camera. But those cathedral shots, just perfect. This is my go-to lens when I'm in New York City, walking the streets with couples as well, because I want to show the grandeur of the city and everything that's going on, but I also need to keep in mind the couple. So in these, whether narrow or wide streets, this comes in handy. Here, lower thirds, but still getting the grandeur of the building and showcasing the space. Look for leading lines when you're working with a long lens. Here, the couple would be kind of lost in this image if we did not have the railings and stairs leading you to them. So anytime I put on a lens this wide, I think about those leading lines so that we can lead the viewer's attention where we want them to go. Leading lines don't have to be parallel. The leading lines can also be works of art. So here we have this squiggly work of art up on the high line. I'm standing in the rain, thank God these are weather sealed, and I'm just doing my thing and capturing these moments. And here we're utilizing a work of art to be our leading line or perspective holder. This is down on 14th Street, still on the High Line. 14th is an incredibly wide street. I don't know of any other lens you could really capture this kind of width and perspective. And again, getting the camera above my head, that flip out screen really helps. And allows me to capture the depth of 14th Street down in the meatpacking district. We do a lot of photographs by our pool in the summertime in the Connecticut studio, and I'm always tight on space in this particular shot. And so the 7 to 14 is my go-to because I want to still show the big pool and show that perspective, but I'm literally backed up with my back all the way against a fence, and so I don't have any more room to go. 7 to 14 allows me to do that really well. This is a wedding that I photographed up at Cornell University in upstate New York. The couple are literally leaving their ceremony. They got married on the balcony right above where they are there. And I wanted to showcase them with the art gallery on the campus behind them because it was meaningful to them. And so as we're walking towards their reception, I'm click, click. But again, at 8 millimeter, I'm zoomed almost all the way out, and that's what it's allowing me to capture this perspective in the height. Getting ready moments again, all the girls, bridesmaids on the bed here, always a great go-to shot to do something fun and capture all the girls together. And so 7 to 14 is a great go-to in those tight spaces, those tight New York City hotel rooms. Similar to what I mentioned before, again, walking with the couple, we're in Central Park, we're going down to capture some portraits, but look how wide of a perspective I'm capturing, holding it above my head really high, flip out screen, helping all the way. I love that I've gotten it high enough that you can see all the bridesmaids' faces above the bride and groom's heads behind them. Works really well. Detail shots are incredibly important for our weddings. Our florists love us because of it. The hotels refer us because of it. This is the Pierre Hotel in New York as well. And the rotunda room as we first enter, as the guests are going to enter into this room. and cocktail hour before everybody gets in. Super wide perspectives, and then this is what it looks like once guests are in. But again, keeping those lower thirds ideas important when you're working with wide lenses. All the details also of our ballrooms incredibly important. The 7-14 is our go-to to capture those. You want to keep it level, watch the level line inside. You start doing this, you start getting a little warping on the edges, but you keep it level and you get perfectly perpendicular shots, works really well. And so this again is the Pierre Hotel Ballroom, captured with the 7-14. This is in upstate New York at a private country club as well. Beautiful social club space. Bride and groom went out onto the pier, and as you can see, when we're working on piers, we want to capture the entire building in the distance. We really need something wide. Here we're zoomed about 12mm to capture this, but this is when we really require this incredibly wide lens. Another time we require a wide lens, this is in Beverly Hills. I shouldn't say that. This is downtown Los Angeles at the Biltmore Millennium, but a vintage Hollywood ballroom. You can actually go behind the scenes of this wedding, see a lot more shots on our vlog as well. And this lens is the only lens I could have that would allow me to capture this perspective, this incredibly wide perspective of the ballroom so well. And we do a lot of interior photographs of the spaces we work in. This is a mansion in New Jersey where we were just working at an event, kind of capturing the spaces. I love the G9 and GH5's dynamic range, as you can see here. I'm at 7mm, hand holding this at a 20th of a second, ISO 1600. Beautiful, not a lot of noise, just looks like a really clean, beautiful file. And this is the outside of the castle that we were just inside, capturing some of the room details. So that is the 7-14mm f4, how we've been using it. Just wanted to share some inspirations and ideas. And the thought process that I go through when this lens is on my camera, and some of the things that I see when this lens is on my camera and I put it through the viewfinder, put my eye to the viewfinder. I hope this shared some inspiration with you guys. It's helpful. We're going to be reviewing more lenses in the Micro Four Thirds lineup over the next month here on our channel. Hope you'll stick with us and join us. We appreciate you, everybody. Have a great one.